You know, there are some urban legends that just completely stick with you, the ones that crawl under your skin and refuse to leave. Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we're doing a deep dive into the absolute nightmare that went down at the Badlapur station. We're going to piece together a night of unimaginable terror, using nothing but the cold, hard facts that were left behind. So let's dive into this dark puzzle. And honestly, it might just make you think twice before ever deciding to travel alone at night again.
So, picture this. It's morning. The sun is just starting to rise over a literal blood-soaked train station. The police roll up and they're taking in this gruesome, completely sickening scene. There's a mutilated body lying lifeless on the tracks with thick trails of blood dragged across the stones. And what does the lead inspector do? He just takes a quick look around, lets out a heavy sigh, and totally dismisses this absolute bloodbath. His exact words? "It looks like suicide. Close it for now." But as we're going to see, the evidence tells a completely different, way more sinister story.
I want you to really look at the facts here and ask yourself, was it really a suicide? Does a completely crushed skull, a cell phone that's been violently shattered all over the gravel, and these heavy drag marks of blood actually point to someone just taking their own life? Or does it point to a desperate, horrific struggle in the absolute dark? That's the real mystery of this sealed tunnel. And the deeper we go into it, the more terrifying it gets.
The bloody morning. Okay, to actually understand the bloody aftermath of that morning, we have to completely rewind the clock. Let's look at the timeline of this cursed night. Just notice how incredibly compressed this nightmare actually is. At exactly 12:30 a.m., a train stops. Then, just an hour and a half later, at 2 a.m., a husband wakes up in a cold sweat with this terrible feeling of dread. And by dawn, 2 bodies are discovered? It's crazy because it perfectly illustrates how fast a totally normal, quiet evening can just spiral into an inescapable, violent nightmare.
The last local journey. So, our story follows a woman named Ria. She'd been stuck at the office late doing some urgent work. We've all been there, right? And she was forced to catch the very last local train from Dadar to Badlapur. As the stops ticked by, the passengers just dwindled and dwindled, until she was completely isolated in an eerily empty ladies' coach. The time is exactly 12:30 a.m. The train inexplicably grinds to a halt in the middle of nowhere, just outside her station, and the platform is completely empty. Imagine the absolute sensory isolation she must have felt. The only thing around her is the deafening, heavy sound of the deep night. Ria calls her husband, Suhas, who practically begs her not to walk home and just take a taxi. But the terror had already begun.
Because before she even gets near the dreaded tunnel, the psychological horror sets in. Ria starts feeling this unnerving presence, so she nervously turns on her phone's front-facing camera, and for a split second, a dark shadow looms right behind her. Then it just immediately vanishes. Sweating, she steps out onto the totally empty platform, only to start hearing invisible, heavy footsteps echoing against the concrete. Stepping when she steps, speeding up when she speeds up, literally perfectly matching her own frantic pace.
Seriously, put yourself right in Ria's shoes for a second. If you're walking down a completely empty train platform and you can clearly hear the distinct sound of someone walking right behind you, would you actually dare to turn around? That heart-pounding hesitation, that cold sweat on the back of your neck when you know you are being hunted, but you can see absolutely no one. That is true terror.
The terrifying dark tunnel. Ria finally reaches the exit, only to realize that her one and only path out of this desolate station is straight into pitch-black darkness. This builds up so quickly into sheer panic. She steps into the oppressive dark, relying entirely on the weak, little beam of her phone's flashlight. Out of the heavy silence, she hears something. It's this mysterious, soft crying. Pushing through the fear, she points her light forward and actually spots a strange girl, maybe 21 years old, just sitting in the shadows. Her face is completely hidden by long, tangled hair.
Ria gently asks if the girl needs help, and in response, the girl slowly lifts her head and just begins to laugh. But it's this erratic, painful, psychotic laughter that absolutely freezes Ria's blood. The tension here is almost unbearable. Suddenly, Ria's flashlight flickers. It blinks out for just a single second, and when the light comes back, the girl is completely gone. Panic completely takes over. Ria is frantically searching around with her light until she hears this horrific, unnatural scratching sound coming from right above her head. She slowly looks up. The girl is hanging upside down from the ceiling of the tunnel. Her hair is blowing wildly, and she's staring at Ria with these unblinking eyes. In a raspy, unnatural whisper that barely even sounds human, she says,
You cannot escape from here. The girl lunges, and everything just goes black.
Suhas's terrifying search.
So it's now 2 a.m. After Ria mysteriously stops answering her phone, her husband Suhas hops on his motorcycle for a desperate, freezing ride to the station. And we can methodically track his fatal progression into the cursed building. First, he speaks to a totally clueless guard who insists no woman matching Ria's description ever left the station. Ignoring all the red flags, Suhas goes in anyway. The yellow lights are flickering violently overhead, the silence is super heavy, and as he steps into that pitch-black tunnel, the agonizing, loud crunch of gravel beneath his feet echoes like a death knell.
Deep in the darkness, Suhas's flashlight catches something resting on the ground. It's Ria's scarf. This wave of totally sickening dread washes over him. And then, from the absolute blackness straight ahead, this chilling, rhythmic sound begins to echo through the tunnel.
Talk, talk, talk.
The blood-curdling end.
Suhas slowly approaches that awful rhythmic sound, his flashlight shaking in his hand. In the distance, he sees a familiar silhouette standing facing the cold stone wall. But look at the tragic, terrifying contrast of what he actually finds. Before, Ria was just a frightened woman in a white shirt and jeans trying to get home. But the entity in the dark, it is brutally smashing its own head against the stone wall, over and over again, blood pouring down its neck. When Suhas grabs her shoulder to try and stop her, she turns around. Her eyes are entirely, lifelessly white, and a terrifying, animalistic smile stretches across her bleeding face.
Reaching out with her blood-soaked hands, she speaks to him in this sickly sweet yet utterly hollow tone. Suhas, you're here. Won't you come to me? It's a psychological trap. Overcome with shock and desperately just wanting to save his wife, Suhas steps right into her arms, completely unaware that the woman he loved is already gone.
What happens next is a scene of pure, straight-up, visceral body horror. Ria locks him in this suffocating, unbreakable, demonic grip. As he struggles to breathe, she opens her jaw unnaturally wide and sinks her teeth deeply into his neck. Suhas screams in total agony as she violently rips a chunk of human flesh right from his throat and begins chewing it. As he bleeds to death on the cold tunnel floor, his final sight is his wife's eyes turning blood red as she literally feasts upon him.
Which brings us full circle, right back to the morning light. The completely oblivious police find Ria's brutally crushed skull and Suhas's drained body. Without understanding even a fraction of the supernatural slaughter that actually occurred down there, they quickly rule it a suicide and seal the blood-soaked location. The heavy iron gates are locked forever.
But you know, that leaves us with one final bone-chilling question. They locked the gates to keep people out, but what if they merely locked something terrifying inside? What truly lurks in the dark of that sealed tunnel tonight? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Sleep well, if you can.